stories for today, as earlier presented to you at 6:30 when we give you the news for the first time on the show. Joining us for analysis this morning, we have Adenike. Good morning, Adenike.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Happy New Year and well done. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Adenike. We also have Ugo Dre. Good morning, Ugo.
Good morning. Happy New Year, everybody.
All right.
Happy New Year
Hope
to
you had a great holiday.
No,
Oh,
You didn't?
yeah,
sorry, I asked.
not really.
All right, for those who had a good holiday and are willing to share with us this morning, not just with their holiday, but also join us in the conversation in analyzing the news for today, kindly send your message to WhatsApp 0809 444 0981.
And Twitter is at Smooth91FM. The hashtag is FreshlyPressed91, and we're streaming live on YouTube. I'll start with you, Adenike, for this story on Punch newspaper. Federal government report uncovers 27 million naira scam in Defense Ministry. The headline reads as saying that alleging it's a scam, but the Office of the Attorney General, from where this report came, said there were irregularities in its report. In the remittances in 2016, talking about several payments and all that. Please take us through the story.
Okay, so I must state at first that it's unclear to me um, which one of the Attorney General. I don't know if we've even changed anyone from 2016 to up until now. I didn't confirm. So if we have a new Attorney General, different from who was in office back then, this reports that this article is very interesting. However, the report is from the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, titled Attorney General's Annual Report on the Accounts of the Federation of Nigeria 2016. And the Punch claims that it was obtained by their correspondent, and they show that there were irregularities totaling 20 million naira in the National Planning Committee of the 2017 Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration. I took a pause when I read that. I'm like, wait, Armed Forces Remembrance Day is a few days from now. And if they're saying that in 2016 they spent how much, there's an irregularity, totaling 20 million naira. I'm wondering how much have we spent in the last how many years that we've been celebrating this Armed Forces Remembrance Day? What exactly is this we use this funding for the gunshot salute? Or what is, because it's always been, for the national one, it's always held at the Eagle Square. So it's not like you are renting my key. Do they give these people refreshment? What exactly is it that they do? As if that wasn't bad enough, of particular interest to me is the fact that they claim, there are several claims, claims that receipts were not remitted. There was one about paying for their officials at Ministry of Defense to attend a special training in the US. And the money wasn't paid to the travel agency, and the practice, and the principle in civil services that you must get at least three, quotations from three travel agencies
to compare.
Exactly. So you take the most, the minimum is government money. Well, in this instance, the money was transferred into the account of one of the officers, thereby allowing the government, the ministry, not pay withholding tax and blah blah blah. It just speaks so much, because they say that 7.4 million naira was raised and paid in favor of the staff to procure the said travel tickets for the Honorable Minister of Defense and others to enable them to travel to the US in 2016. Also, receipts, invoice, and other relevant supporting documents were neither attached to the voucher before payment nor produced for audit verification. This expenditure is therefore unreceipted and illegitimate. There was no letter of invitation or any document attached to the voucher to indicate the duration of the meetings.
And this is supposed to be for the nuclear summit that is organized
exactly.
by the US government in 2016.
But I'm kind of excited that Buhari has now said 2 trips per quarter. Yes. So they had claimed there are no more business class tickets for civil servants,
And
except a particular
level.
Exactly, and then that was stopped.
ESTA codes.
Yeah. So this is 2016. This is just coming out in 2020. I don't know if it's the Punch is making it seem like it's a leak of some sort. But the question is, beyond reading in the pages of the newspaper, what will happen to the said individuals that occupied these offices at the time that should have done better?
So to answer your question earlier, Abubakar Malami has been the Attorney General. He was reappointed this year, last year, 2019.
No, Auditor General, no, not Attorney.
Oh, apologies.
We're talking money.
Apologies, yes. You know, the two names,
Yeah.
AG, just confusing
Sorry,
sometimes.
sorry.
All right, okay. Let's move on now to this next story from Premium Times. Power Minister speaks on appointment of ex-level 12 official to head electrification agency. So when this appointment was announced, people said, huh? When they heard that he had vast experience, that a certain individual has been appointed with vast experience, but people within the ministry cast doubts as to the level of experience that the government pushed for to, promote this guy's appointment, saying no, that he doesn't merit the position, he's not the right fit for the job, and he possibly has ties, family ties with the appointer. Your thoughts?
Who is the right fit for any job anyway?
Good question.
Okay, so this is a story that I like to look at differently. I don't think that the issue here is about whether he's the right fit or not. That you leave civil service as a level 12 employee does not mean that you can't aspire for a higher position or hold a public office or become an appointee of any government agency. So that's my own opinion though. However, what I think the challenge here basically is nepotism. So I think that people are a little bit worried that the president seems to be appointing a lot of people that he is very close to, either people that he has family ties with or people that are very friendly with him, or people that have probably worked with him in previous administrations. And I think that this is something that he basically has done over the years. And to be frank, it's actually not him alone. Most other leaders have done the same thing. It's just that maybe people haven't actually looked deeper, or focused more on them as they have on Buhari. And then something else as well that was a bit of a concern was that a lot of people also feel like this is also a president that seems to appoint a lot more people from northern part of the country as against the south. So where you have maybe somebody, a southerner in quote, who is occupying a position and the person leaves, or you get that person out, replacing him is usually somebody from, or typically somebody from the north. So these are the issues there. So let's just not try to make this sound like it's about whether somebody is competent or not, because I don't think that somebody who has worked and left the civil service as a level 12 employee is just a small fry. That is basically a senior manager as far as I'm concerned, or at least above manager levels in any organization, and that's not a small person as far as I'm concerned. So what we should look at here is whether there's a lot of nepotism here or ethnic preference for some kind of people. Now beyond that, the REEA hasn't actually fulfilled a lot of its mandate over the years. So
that's a rural
electrification agency. So we've had several experienced people in court over the years, and it's not like they've delivered. So there's that concern about nepotism here, but can this guy deliver? I think that's what the focus really should be. And so let's see what he does over the next few months. We need to get electricity to rural areas, urban areas. We've seen what rural urban migration is doing to states like Lagos. So people are leaving their states here just because maybe they can get electricity or they can get jobs. So if you have rural REA working, doing what it's supposed to be doing, then that would basically help development across Nigeria.
Thank you.
His name is Salihijo Ahmad. He's been appointed as the managing director, chief executive officer of the Crucial Electrification Agency, Rural Electrification Agency. Ugo, I wanted to ask earlier, if the president makes a statement, does it overrule certain questions being asked in terms of right processes being circumvented? For instance, he said at the start of this new tenure that he was going to appoint people he knows, people he's familiar with, people he's comfortable with. So making that statement, if he makes this kind of appointment, does it negate criticism?
It doesn't. You can criticize. I mean, and that's why we're in a democracy. So people have a right to criticize, right? And that's why I've said that. Look, personally, you can criticize the president's appointment on the basis of nepotism or maybe ethnic preference. But in terms of the guy or the person himself saying he's not competent because he was a level 12 civil servant.
Mid-level
Yeah,
officer,
mid-level
yes.
officer. I don't subscribe
Yes.
to that at all. All we need is people who have fresh thinking and people that can do the
People
job.
who are
That's just my own
competent.
opinion. Yeah.
Besides, the appointments are based on minister's recommendations. so
Exactly,
not
and it's the
solely-
president's discretion anyway. The buck stops on his table.
All right, thank you, Ugo. Let's go to a comment here from Comrade Henry. He says the federal government should look critically into the issue of National Assembly's 37 billion voted for renovation and channel 80% of it to education and infrastructure. How can you renovate a building that was built in 1999 with that sum of money? The federal government should promise less this year, but embark on massive execution of planned programs of action. No shifting of blame again.
I think there should really be, our attention should shift to probing amounts spent on supposedly spent on maintenance from then when it was built
Yes,
till now,
yeah.
because there's supposed to be some funds as allotted
Yeah,
every year.
you know, very quickly, as a person living with disability, I would agree that the National Assembly must, of a necessity, improve its structure to enable people like myself
Gain access.
various spectrums of disability. However, like you mentioned, we must, of a necessity, scrutinize what is a match for what and why what is costing what.
Yes.
If we don't do that, which we know is what will eventually happen, it will just be 37 million for somebody to take it. They claim that there's a FCT, the government agency, that is going to effect the changes, but come on, guys. In 2020, reality is that structure was not built to fit persons living with disability. So we must, of a necessity, effect changes, but do it with sense.
With sense,
Yes.
that's right.
Thank you.
Adenike, now you have the mic. Let's take this story together from the Guardian newspaper. Kano, Katsina, Bauchi, the joint states paying new minimum wage. When I saw this headline, I asked myself, why is this news?
Yep.
Because it seems like they're doing something lofty, but it's their job. But the reality is, many states are still struggling to conform with this 30,000.
I think it was interesting to me that which of the states? Oh yeah, in the same Katsina state, the story claims that they are working with representatives of the government and the NLC to see how they can what's the word, boost internally generated revenue. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm lost. How does that concern? But hey, if the NLC has ideas that would help the government, just go ahead. I don't see why this is making the headlines. It's news, actually. It's not making headlines. Why it is news. And I honestly am bothered at the fact that a lot of them are claiming that one state was claiming that they will pay them from so and so, and then the backlog, once other state starts to pay, we'll find the modality and find a way. And I'm thinking to myself, are you guys jokers? Why are you setting up committees now to pay 30,000 naira minimum wage? What exactly is going on? And it's also reflective for us Nigerians to understand that the civil service across the board must either be slashed or must change, because it's such a burden. I remember when I was about to get into the market, everybody was saying, oh, because of your disability, go and get a job in civil service, it will allow you to do your own thing. And I was thinking to myself, what in God's good earth does your own thing mean? My father retired from the civil service, and I watched him serve with everything that he had. A promise I told myself I will not do, because after many years, all he got was sound system and just size deep freezer. That was it. Apart from the fact that yes, they pay his pensions, which doesn't even get up to 60,000 naira monthly as I speak to you in 2020, and this is someone that gave his youthful years. So I made a promise not to serve. I'll be very honest. So when I used to hear people say, how about you get a job with civil service, I used to wonder, what does do your own thing mean? But you and I understand what it means.
Exactly, side job, side hustle.
So the government's job is now, your side hustle.
I was going to say that actually the government's job is a side hustle.
The government job
you
is
have
your side
main
hustle,
yeah.
so you have whatever it is that you're doing. So Kano, Katsina, Bauchi states, just pay the money and stop forming committees here and there. You don't have money to pay. Yes, nobody's. So how about you pay the arrears and then start to speak to your civil service to say, look, we have to cut down on the number because we can no longer sustain it, especially since our revenue, whatever it is not enlarging.
We're not generating enough revenue to meet.
We can't keep carrying our caps in hand to the federal government and asking. So yeah, it's only Osho State that said, again, he inaugurated a committee to look at, and I'm reading the words, modalities for the implementation of the minimum wage for the workers. He said nothing would make him to discontinue payment of full workers' salaries promptly, as the workers' welfare is very important to his administration, something we know was not the practice under Rauf Aregbesola. So
So I'm asking this question while you're analyzing. I like the words you use, very chosen wisely. I'm thinking these states are supposed to have accountants, supposed to have the financial structure. Who manages states' accounts? Both that I mean, the accounts or amounts are used by the state government and the ones used in the civil service.
Well, on paper they have auditors. On
Mm.
paper they have people who I think let's start with the auditor of the state, and that's his job. But in practice, most of these people are servants, civil servants to the state executive governors. So
Very interesting. Let's move on to discuss this story from the Telegraph. Ugo Dre. Federal government to spend 3.4 billion naira on Nigeria's satellite company. White Elephant project or something?
I don't know. It's not a white elephant project. It's a non-existent. Let me don't say that.
Oh, so it's
Anyway,
worse than the white elephant.
so the story basically is highlighting how much Nigeria basically has been wasting on Nigecom Sat. So Nigecom Sat is a project, or it's actually a company owned by the federal government, and they provide satellite services. So if you look at some of their services include transponder lending, broadband services, right? Broadcasting, excuse me, which is like free to air, free to view, pay TV,
Oh, interesting.
stuff like what DSTV
Yes,
does,
yes.
navigation, value-added services. And you ask yourself, who did they provide these services to?
Thank you.
Yeah, so no, they do provide it to some ISPs, to some local telecom companies, and they should actually also export these services to some West African countries as well who need the kind of services that they provide. But according to the story, over the years they actually haven't made anything at all. So for example, in 2011, they spent 2.8 billion, but made only 36 million in income. Now, if you shift to 2000,
Sorry, say that again. They spent
in 2011, they spent 2.8 billion and made only 36 million in income. Now, move to 2012. 2012, they spent 6.8 billion and made 38 million. Right? You come to 2014, which was half year, 3.6 billion and 248 million income. So something is not just working. So these guys spend a lot on salaries, and in their 2020 budget, the story says that according to the approved 2020 budget, 76% of the sum of 2.6 billion that they budgeted for goes into recurrent expenditure, while 835 million is to be spent on capital expenditure. So every year we budget huge amounts of money for this company, but it doesn't generate as much revenue.
What services do they provide?
I just reeled them out right now.
Free to air.
Yes, I reeled them out right now.
Does it has a
So this is
in that way?
yeah,
So
this
it's free services
basically
that's thrown out in the air. To
a
anyone
bit
who
like
catch.
no, it's a bit like what the DSTV does.
Yes, that's
right.
like
So
how
it's
you-
either use a cable or set-top box to maybe watch cable
I was
TV,
being sarcastic in my
or
question.
broadband services and all. It's crazy. So Val, this is one of those government agencies or companies that you need to privatize. You just can't have government continue to run these agencies, because quite frankly, who is actually looking at this place? Nobody is. So this is just where people just make money. You just go there every day and you collect salaries, and there's actually no value being provided.
Very quickly, Ugo, what obtains in other parts of the world? Because I know Nigeria is not the only one that has a satellite and that provides this service for its people.
Yeah.
But how does it work in other parts of the world?
They privatize it.
So it's
Well,
privatized.
most countries privatize it. Of course, some don't. But
Yeah.
if you have an efficient government, right, central government that knows how to manage things like this,
Yeah.
then for security reasons, you can have government still own it. But when you have porous government like here, where the priorities are here, neither here nor there, or you have different kind of priorities, then you can't have government manage these things. You just have to privatize and let people who know how to run business run it. Who will run a business where you're spending billions and you're bringing in 30 million,
Exactly.
30 million?
Yeah.
So when we ask this question about where are the holes, how can we start plugging holes where there's government wastage?
This is an
These are
example.
exactly-
Imagine if you move this money into healthcare or education.
Thank you very much, Ugo. Because now this is a real issue that state governors, and the same reason why majority of them shouldn't be governors in the first place. So it's either the voters are daft or the rigging is so watertight. How can paying workers' salary be an achievement or declaring a state a Christian state? Mado. All right, thank you very much. We move on to our next story. Adenike, the president has come out to assure us through his special advisor on media and publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, in his New Year speech to say that he has no plans for a third term in 2023, amidst other things that he highlighted. Please take us through this story from the Daily Times.
I salute the commitment. No, let me read. It says, elections are the cornerstone of our democracy. I salute the commitment of the millions who voted in peace last February and of those leaders who contested for office vigorously but fairly, submitting to the authority of the electorate, the independent National Electoral Commission and judicial process. I understand very well the frustrations our system has in the past triggered. I will be stepping down in 2023 and will not be available in any future elections. Well, not because democracy is anyhow. Yeah, this is no news.
Yes, true.
You know,
we shouldn't be debating whether he should go for a third term when the constitution states.
Which is why a lot of people, particularly the West, is still divided over Kagame. You know, he states it's not democratic. How long is it? Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But the reality about it is, in the first term he went, they saw drastic improvements. There was a need for him to get re-elected. But the second term, and when he was going to extend, a lot of people were raising their eyebrows. Should he go? Should he not go? But then the people realized that one of the things that his government had done was reconciliation with Rwanda and the genocide aftermath. And there, without a doubt, Rwanda has seen such a tremendous change since Kagame has been there. I was divided, as to the fact that why is he still continuing to be president? But on the flip side, in our own case, the question is: have we seen enough reasons for us to even start to consider this as a conversation for Buhari to, have a thought for a third term?
This is like the second or third time it's making headlines in the past few weeks.
It's because the democracy is anyhow democracy. Let's be very honest.
I recall sometime last week we were talking about how these stories are, finding its way on the headlines, and it could possibly have been sponsored by people who are trying to push him up there.
Strategic now. People. You mentioned Ayo, when you were laying the foundation, you said he touched on several things.
Security.
Yes, exactly. He talked about the Northeast Development Commission and stating that the intent is to work with the local and international stakeholders to help create a new beginning for the region. He also said that our security forces will receive the best training and modern weaponry, and in turn be held to the highest standard of professionalism and respect for human rights. My question is, when will this start? He said the new Ministry of Police Affairs has increased recruitment of officers and security reforms. He also touched on the rule of law. He also talked about new agreements with Morocco, with Russia.
So trading inclusivity.
Attractive terms, for the inputs into the country to transform farming. And he finally, Buhari touched on new reforms in the nation's education, healthcare, and water sanitation. And why I'm mentioning these, as I also wrap up with the fact that he expressed emphatically the harmony, using his word, between the legislature and the executive. And now, my man, I wonder, why does it sound like they're best buddies? You're not supposed to be best buddies. It's just do your job.
In some parts, yes, it's a good thing, because then we can pass.
In this regard,
yes, but in this area,
it's not. We're not looking for best buddies. We're looking for one arm of government checkmating and balancing the excesses of the other arm. So let's see how that goes.
Which sounds like MI's message, or Maya. Maya says, "Good morning. Let's have the federal government match whatever the states generates. A lot of these states have no one to serve. Let IGR, that's internally generated revenue, be matched by the states and see what happens."
All right, thank you very much. We'll go on to our next story. And before I do that, in the report by the Daily Times, I'd ask you to please check it out. It's quite long, the one Adenike just reviewed. Final thing he also touched on was the power sector, which is very important. He talked about the cement deal. Ugo, we have in the next story that the federal government loses 626.7 billion naira as average energy drops to 3,781 megawatts. In the Guardian newspaper. Now, in the Daily Times report that we just took, the president promised that Nigerians can expect to see significant improvement in electricity service supply, reliability, and delivery. This is something that we cannot say we have enjoyed in the past 1 year, and this headline is not encouraging. Please take us through the story.
Yeah, so this year is likely going to be very pivotal for Nigerians in terms of electricity. We expect to see, tariff increase at some point. They've talked about increasing the tariff for electricity so that that can unlock investments into that sector. Then there's this Siemens deal that it's currently ongoing. We know that there's also going to be some, they're going to move from discussions on the round table to actually doing the work, which is providing investment across the power sector value chain, which is generation, transmission, and distribution. So, but would we see, improved power supply this year compared to the year before? Perhaps. But I don't think that it's going to be as incremental as a lot of us would expect. So 2019, however, would be remembered for the spate of system collapses that we've had here. So I think, according to this article, we had 11 system collapses. I mean, like, in some countries, you have one a decade.
I know.
So you have 11
Thank you for putting that
in
into
1
perspective.
year. So that's quite crazy, and really shouldn't be. And it just shows how weak the network is, especially the transmission network. So because when you have system collapses, it means that when you generate power and it's not balanced in some areas, or maybe there are some areas that are not taking in power as much as they should, then the system just collapses and you have to start to reboot all over again. It's something that we hope that we don't experience this year at all.
I was going to ask you, how about alternative sources of power? In other countries, they explore solar power, they explore
The
other.
sister is expensive.
So,
you
but
can
the
do
thing is,
that.
they're going to increase tariff, and I don't think if you ask some Nigerians, particularly people in business, they wouldn't mind paying the.
So Adenike just hit it. They're actually quite expensive, right? They work and they're not bad, but they're quite expensive. So I also know that there's a lot of investment across the world going into making these things cheaper. It's actually cheaper than it was, say, 10 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, so you expect that with improved technology, it will get cheaper. But by and large, the grid power is still the most reliable power for any country. So because that's the one that gets around everywhere. So where you have, in fact, for most countries that rely on renewable energy or solar, it's because they have grid power in PJ and Yafu. So you can afford to start to go into all those solar just to reduce your cost or just to feel good about the earth and things like that. But that can't be like your core strategy for power supply in a country that really needs power. No. So we have to, see that this Siemens deal actually materialize into better power supply for everybody, and then we can start to enjoy dividends of that investment.
Right. Thank you.
Emeka Melon said in reaction to the story you just touched on, says it's obvious the national grid system has been a disaster. Why not explore regional smaller grids, so build them that will be easier to manage? It's 2020. Other countries are talking about artificial intelligence. We're still struggling to maintain our meager power.
Exactly.
Opemi Pray says, I smell high-level thievery in night concerts. Night concerts makes more than 36 million from telcos in Saka Tinubu alone.
That's another angle as well, because the reports that the figures that are being reported does not quite match. It's not realistic. All right, let's move on to our next story very quickly. The subscriber identity module, popularly called SIM registration, according to reports, the Nigerian Communications Commission is has cleaned up 24 million subscribers record, New Telegraph reports. Adenike, please take us through this story.
Okay, so they have said that this was achievable through the deployment of automated fingerprint identification system in its fulfillment of its mandate to establish a credible database of telephone subscribers. And I think that what's interesting to me was sometime in October last year, they had announced that SIM cards would henceforth require the presentation of national identity number, the name. And I remember how people continue to talk about how very soon. I mean, the reality about it is if you haven't done it, if you don't have it yet, the truth is sooner than you expect, you will not be able to do so many things. You'll be locked out from so many things. So make sure you get that as quickly as possible. Now, the executive chairman had said that the policy was in line with the National Identity Management Commission Act relating to Benin registration. He said that I think they also talked about So, one of the reasons why they were doing this was to mitigate security concerns, challenges of tracking criminal uses of telephones. I remember when we did SIM registration, that was one of the things but it continued after
Yes,
a
it
while.
did.
So I'm hoping for whatever it is worth, that this will cut it, to a point of impossibility. As the case
I
may be.
must say that from the time we started, when we first started, it has improved significantly to track those behind the SIM cards. But thank
Sorry,
you.
very quickly, I might add, if you're using MTN, to confirm that your phone number is properly registered, please dial *789 *1 hash Airtel or 9 Mobile 746. Send dial that or 200 for Glow subscribers 746 or 3456.
All right, thank you very much, Valentine. And last one, I'll just for sake of mention, the DSS has disclaimed allegations of detaining activists, notably Agba Jalingo and Abubakar Idris. They say they're not in their custody. So the question is, who's custody? Where are they?
Yeah, I'm surprised this is coming up though, because I know there was an article I read a few days ago in Punch that said that in fact, let me quote it. According to him, it was later discovered that the journalist was arrested by operatives of the intelligence response team of the Nigerian police force on August 22nd. So,
where did that story of DSS arresting?
Yeah, I don't know. So that kind of got me
because
confused.
Everybody just assumed that
That they've been that they've been detained by the DSS. Just to put that out there, really important. Well, thank you so much, Adenike. Adenike is Adenike Oyetunde on Twitter. Ugo is at Ugo Dre on Twitter. Please follow them and also engage. Beyond this conversation, you can go online at Smooth 981 FM. Use the hashtag FreshlyPress981, and we'll continue our chat there. In a few minutes, we'll be talking entertainment, music, and all things fun in the Grapevine 981. Please make sure you stay tuned. 8:15, our analyst will be joining us then.